Well, good morning to you, members of the media. Welcome to members on Facebook as well that are watching this live stream. I have just found it necessary to come to speak to the population about the ongoing impact that the recently imposed 2.5% is going to have on the cost of living in the country. On Thursday a week ago, I was part of the Senate where the government passed the services component of the health and security levy, which is at a rate of 2.5% on services across the board. This follows the government's imposition of the same tax on the 2nd of August on the goods component in the country. St. Lucians are already struggling with a very steep and difficult situation caused by the global inflation problem. In fact, we've seen, as a result, significant price hikes in supermarkets, in gas stations, and in various places of commerce. The items can be seen in full glare of the people of St. Lucia. We could see that bread has undergone increases before the imposition of the 2.5% tax. We can see that gasoline at gas stations was affected significantly by price hikes. LPG cooking gas, among the highest it has been in the history of our country. We can see that groceries in the supermarket has reached to levels out of the reach of many St. Lucians. Electricity, according to the government's own social economic review, rose by some 30%. Even green figs in the country. Not only is there a shortage, but whenever you can find it, there is a significant sum that vendors and farmers are demanding for this rather scarce commodity. Bus fares have increased significantly. Food in the supermarkets have increased across the board significantly. This is simply put, things are really, really tough in this country. Things are difficult. Things are hard on a number of people. We have not seen any major price or major increases in salaries so that consumers and residents can keep a pace with the spiraling out of control inflation or cost of living increases that we have seen hitting the country significantly. The inflation in St. Lucia was recorded at 6.4%. But however, some goods, since the global pandemic and the resultant problems we've had with the global supply chain issue, we have seen that a lot of goods have risen by over 100%. Plywood, for example, comes to mind. And so St. Lucia is the third highest in the OECS grouping of countries and is slightly below the average of the ECHCU average on inflation. In fact, countries like Grenada have done much better. Countries like St. Kitts have done much better, where they have contained the inflation problem to below 3%, because those governments came in with a plan. Those governments came in and assisted and implemented several initiatives that can help their citizens to cope with a very, very unprecedented situation where we see the cost of living across the Caribbean was getting out of control. So even before the 2.5% implementation of the health and security level, things were bad in this country on regular consumers. The other thing that is wrong about the timing of this is that the tax revenue in the country is the best ever. And so it really baffles me that after picking up $81 million in new taxes for the financial year ending March 31st, 2023, why would the government feel the need that if tax revenue has increased so significantly by $81 million to $1,073,000, why would it feel necessary that it needs to raise further taxes? The government in its current budget have proposed that they are going to increase taxes by an additional $187 million. So in 2 years, the government would have picked up an additional $268 million in new taxes. It then begs the question as to why the government feels that it needs to tax the people of St. Lucia further into poverty. We try our best to caution the administration against such a move. In fact, the leader of the opposition, in a very eloquent letter, wrote the Prime Minister in his capacity as Minister of Finance and warned him that this situation is going to make an already difficult climate in the country worse, and that it was going to bring a significant weight on the backs of the people of St. Lucia. The government didn't listen. The opposition leader then warned about the impact this was going to have on small businesses, the impact it was going to have on regular consumers. So they went ahead and they implemented this piece of legislation called the Health and Citizens Security Levy, which we debated the service component in the Parliament. Now, what I want to focus on today is to go through the schedule. We're going to go through Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 of the legislation to show the people of St. Lucia how this tax is going to affect their lives on a daily basis. So in Schedule 1, which focuses on goods, we see that if you are buying paper, just simple paper, the government is going to impose a 2.5%. So it means that if you've got a computer at home and your students are gonna, your children are gonna make printouts for assignments, SBAs and the like, all of your stationery at home will be charged a 2.5%. If you go to the document center and you're trying to make copies and documents, that too will attract a 2.5%. Clothing and material for clothing. If you are buying fabric and you want to go to your tailor or your seamstress to make you special clothing, the government is proposing, have passed a law to tax that as well, a 2.5%. The cottons, for example, for school uniforms, if you, for example, have the next school year back to school, cotton will come at a significant charge. So what we know as the material that we make school shirts, that is going to have a significant increase with the 2.5%. Carpets and other floor coverings will also attract the 2.5%. In number 61 of Schedule 1, clothing and accessories, buttons and zips and makeup and lipstick and all the things that we use on a regular basis will attract the 2.5% additional tax. That's in addition to VAT, that's in addition to a 6.5% service charge. And some of these items as well, they do attract other duties. So the cost of these are going to go up exponentially by the imposition of this 2.5% tax. If someone sends you a pair of footwear from overseas, that too will attract the 2.5%. If you buy it online, comes through Westech, little parcels, not only do you have to pay for the footwear, but you also have to pay for the services provided by Westech. because as we go through the services component of it, I will show you how they're also taxing services. So it's not just goods that they're taxing. This one I find to be very egregious. So they have here number 66 in Schedule 1. They are planning to tax walking sticks. So if you buy a walking stick, you're a pensioner, you're an old man. The fact that you would need a walking stick, it means that you are significantly impaired and ill, you're unfit, and you need help to get around. I think that this one is really inhumane and egregious, and the government really must take a look at this legislation again, because I find it really uncaring and unkind to actually apply a tax on a walking stick. All the elderly in our country should take note. This is regressive, this is unconscionable, and this is unacceptable. Human hair, so you ladies that like weaves, wigs, false hair, all that stuff, you know, human hair now attracts an additional 2.5% tax. So just to look good, the government is now taxing you. And I don't really understand the logic behind some of the things I'm seeing in the schedule. Then you have on the construction sector, in building materials, iron and steel and cement and stones and all that stuff is going to be taxed at 2.5%. Now this is wild. Globally, we have seen price increases in all of these items because of the global supply chain problems that we've had, the disruption to it. And so the government is doing this at the wrong time. The opposition continues to opine. They continue to signal this caution. All of the recovery that we have made as a result of economic recovery from COVID-19, all of this is going to be vanquished because of this ill-conceived tax. Vehicle parts and accessories, alarms, music system, etc. All will attract the 2.5% tax. Medical equipment. This one I find is egregious. So equipment that would conduct the MRI scans, CTC scans, x-rays, optical, photographic, cinematographic. A lot of these equipment now will increase in terms of their price. Now, when you charge the medical clinics this additional tax, who do you think they're going to pass that cost on to? They're not going to absorb that cost. They will pass it on to you and I, the citizens of St. Lucia that are looking for health care, that are looking to take care of ourselves while we are sick. Now, to me, I believe in a progressive tax system. There's nothing progressive about taxing people that are sick. There's nothing progressive about taxing the elderly when they're looking for ways and means to aid their disability, like a walking stick, for example. So we see that there are some really egregious items that are being taxed here. Now, before I go on to the services component, the government likes to say that food will not be affected. But I brought to the Parliament on Thursday a notice from KFC, which showed that KFC announced that they are going to increase their prices on their goods because of the government implementation of the 2.5% tax. Now, it tells me that the government does not understand this economy. They're out of touch with the rudiments of economics. Because here is KFC, a food supplier. KFC says, look, our cost is going up. So while the government did not impose the 2.5% on chicken, but this supplier of fried chicken, they have services. And when you are going to tax the services component, all the inputs that go into their service. So for example, in the case of a KFC, they have computers to service. They have maintenance crews that come to do remedial service repair work on their equipment. All of those are attracting the taxes. And so if you are going to charge all of those extra costs of doing business, supermarkets and food suppliers like restaurants are going to increase their prices. So the opposition does not buy the argument that by the government not imposing the 2.5% tax, that food will not be impacted. This is a complete misrepresentation of what's happening. Because within weeks of the imposition of the tax, we see that they have warned it. And look out, we have to now ask ourselves, by the increased costs that our supermarkets will now have. I mean, they have accountants in the services component. They're taxing accountants. They're taxing advertising, for example. They're taxing trucking services. They're taxing a whole range of other services, computer programming, servicing of computers, servicing of equipment. So by that increased costs, I don't believe that supermarket chains and food suppliers are going to take a hit. No way. You and I are going to have to pay for that. The government is not taxing Massey stores on their services. They're taxing us. They're taxing every single person that goes to Massey stores trying to buy groceries to keep their families alive. I want to go on to Schedule 2 of this, the most ill-fated and ill-timed and ill-conceived piece of legislation that I have ever had to pass or to debate in the House of Assembly. And I mean in the House of Parliament, which is the Senate, the upper house. Wireless communication services under the service component. So Digicel as well, they have sent out a letter to say that their prices on some of their commodities are going up. Yeah, and that is a direct result of the 2.5%. Their letter was very explicit and clear to their customers that while they want to maintain the quality and while they understand that people are going through pressures from the inflation situation afflicting our country, they cannot absorb the cost. So all of us will have to pay more for those services, Wi-Fi services, top-ups. It is not just on wireless communication, it's also on wired communication as well. So cable is also part of that. Motion picture, you go to the cinema, the government is going to tax you. I mean, could you believe that? You know, you have some kids and you're saying maybe there's going to be some extras for popcorn, and now they're going to tax you every single ticket. They're going to tax you, they're going to tax your child. The whole family will have to pay this tax going to the movies. This is really unconscionable on the part of this administration. This is the one that I want to read out to you and show you that you're not paying this 2.5% once. You're paying this 2.5% in a whole host of ways. So, sale of a motor vehicle, for example, is on schedule, in Schedule 2, number 8. And it says so in the legislation. Now, in the case of a sale of a motor vehicle, you're paying 2.5% on the CIF price, the cost of insurance and freight, as it comes into the port. Then you pay 2.5% on that car to the broker, to clear that car for you and the brokerage services. Then you have to pay 2.5% for legal fees, as the lawyer writes the bill of sale, because now legal services are also attracting the 2.5%. On the 2.5% on the registration of the vehicle, you also have to pay that. You have to pay 2.5% on the license plate of the vehicle. So when you go through all the various ways, so we see you pay on the CIF price, you pay on the broker fees, you pay on the legal fees. When it comes to on the registration, on the license plate, you're paying 2.5% on the same item 5 times to 5 different service providers. So when you calculate all of these 2.5%, at different cost of the services, this is almost another 12% that you're paying. So the government has really got to rethink this. I feel very strongly about this because this is going to really make an already bad situation as it relates to cost of living worse in this country. I go on. If you go to the document center, photocopying of documents and document preparation, right? For students and small businesses, you've got to pay this 2.5% on this service. Why is this necessary? Why couldn't the government take this out? All of the students doing their SBAs, all of the small businesses that are trying to do proposals and can't afford the printing at home will now have to confront this egregious and unconscionable piece of legislation. This is the one that really drives me. So, advertising. This one will come home to people like DVS in this room. So if I go to DVS or HDS or any of you TV stations here, and I have a funeral, and I want to put the death announcement on the funeral, I'm going to have to pay 2.5% while I grieve for my young one, for my loved one. Because the government is going to charge you, once you're vatable, 2.5% on all of your advertising. If there's a crusade and a church wants to take an ad with you, they need to pay the 2.5%. If there's a fundraiser for medical reasons, they have to pay the 2.5%. What kind of legislation is this? This needs to be rethink. This is really dangerous. This is going to strangle the already weak pockets of ordinary families in this country. This is going to peg back the economic progress that businesses have made in this country. This is happening whilst the tourism sector is down. It means that in the immediate short term, those people who are unemployed because they are having less hours within the tourism sector and other sectors that are in the low season right now, it means that these individuals are going to be crushed in the short term because they have zero income coming in. I can only imagine the taxi drivers at the arcade and the vendors at the arcade. The fact that we've had zero cruise ships and how they will have to confront this exorbitant increases in cost. So the United Workers' Party position is clear. Government has to go back and rethink this legislation because it's impacting the people of St. Lucia in significant ways. There is no need to do this. Tax revenue is on the increase without this. If the government is looking for $30 million to spend on healthcare and security, we have made the point before that consultancy, which has increased by $40 million, why do you need to increase consultancies by $40 million? Why does travel and subsistence have to be 17,777,000 is the number I have? Why does hosting and entertainment have to be $2.something million? The government needs to do some budget cuts to make sure that they're not placing all of the need to address the fiscal situation on the backs of the people of St. Lucia that have not had a salary increase of any significant note in a very long time. Salaries in this country, income in this country is not rising exponentially. This is the wrong time, and the United Workers' Party remains very concerned. I take your questions now if you have any. All right, good. Thank you very, very much, members of the media. Thank you all. Yeah, sure.
Just one question.
Sure, sir.
So, Senator Philip, what's the latest on the project that they commenced that involved the employment of the Chinese nationals?
The latest on the project, what?
Involving the Chinese nationals.
I I wouldn't have all the information on that. That's a question that is more suited for the government. We would have processed the investment. I remember when the investment at Galaxy was launched here in St. Lucia, and I remember our government was very, very strong about the level and the proportionality of locals versus foreigners to be on the work site. What we agreed on was an 80-20 situation. So we said to them, look, we understand that we may not necessarily have all the skills on island, and you're allowed to bring in as much as 20%. But 80% of those working on your site at all times, they have to be St. Lucia nationals. I don't know whether this government have upheld that, whether they've changed that in the development clause. What I can tell you though is that I remember with the range development, when it was conceived and developed by the previous administration, the former Prime Minister signed a development agreement about 6 days before the 2016 election. And I remember clearly in the Parliament saying that something was wrong with the government rushing to sign the development. And in that development, one of the things that struck me was the fact that the government said to the investor that they could bring as much as 60% of foreign employees. I had never seen such a thing before, and I'm very happy to have a debate with the existing regime about who have actually been more responsible and been on the side of the people of St. Lucia as it relates to these development agreements that we signed. Very happy to have a debate.
Thank you. Excuse me, what project is he speaking?
He's speaking of the Canals project, the Galaxy project. It's down at Canals in Meadow South. They're building a resort project there under the CIP fund. So he was referring to the video that went viral on social media. Yeah.
Yes. I have a question. Sorry to come late.
Sure, no problem.
And it concerns the application of the 25% tax. You said that on buying a vehicle, you have to pay that tax more than once, or two, sometimes maybe 5 times. Is that is this an isolated incident, or does that happen? Are there more than one incident where this tax is applied in such a manner?
Well, it would be on more than one instance. I just use the example of a car because I think that everyone can relate to it. But if you think of, like for example, in the schedule, it says land transactions, for example. So if you went to buy land and you think of all the steps and all the services you would need to buy a piece of land in St. Lucia, you've got to go to the lawyer to do the legal work with the bank. You're paying that 2.5%. And you need other services to get this land. If you're developing the same land on architectural services, for example, if you go to build a house, you need to pay the architect 2.5%. And other services that you need to build a house. There's just the architect, but construction services and all of that stuff. So it's a very complicated piece of legislation that the private sector, residents, and a whole host of stakeholders are very concerned about and are very disappointed. In fact, you would recall that the private sector were crying loud for this to be delayed until next year. The government obviously did not listen and went ahead to rush this. When I speak to business people, they are very confused about how to apply this and what are the changes that are necessary administratively in order for them to administer this tax and to make this tax seamless. This process is a very difficult one for many businesses to apply. And I think even in that confusion, there is a risk of additional costs on you, the consumer. Because in the initial stages, are we going to be overcharged because businesses might not apply this correctly? So there are all these considerations that we need to bear in mind. you know, as we go through the first stages of this. This is really unfortunate, and it's going to peg us back. It's gonna certainly tighten some of the progress that we've made economically as we recover from COVID. It's certainly going to hit consumers very, very hard. And I don't buy the example from government that food will not be impacted. Food will be impacted, even though they have not directly imposed it on the food, because the supermarkets have got to confront increased costs.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, members of the media.
Hi, my name is Dominic Fede, representing the constituency of Ancillary Canneries, and really my candidacy for this election is about bringing out the best in the constituency. We've accomplished some 15 inner community roads together. When I look at the cemetery road and I think of women coming to a funeral in high heels and had to bring 2 pairs of shoes because of the mud. Those days are gone. We built the HRD center and we have had some 200 individuals who have been trained within the first few months of opening. We want to build more houses. We want to help more of you. We want to create more jobs. And some of the ideas that we have include a call center in the constituency where, when completed, would generate some 400 to 600 jobs. When I look at the Ancillary Waterfront project, the jetty is going to be extended. A mini hotel is already at the ground floor and being built. The square is being redone. There's a restaurant in the location of the old community center building. This is going to transform the Ancillary Waterfront. The drain around the field has been much talk, and it's been an eyesore, and it has been a source of much discomfort to the people of Ancillary. But I am happy to tell you that after fighting hard for it together, we are now in a position where the drain is being built. I'm asking you to support us because I'm convinced that we have the superior vision for St. Lucia. So if you're from Canneries Ancillary, then you know you have to stay with Fede. Let's keep working.